new era for the England national team has begun, the Thomas Tuchel era, and it has kicked off with 2 wins against Albania and Latvia in the World Cup qualifiers. Of course, this is a lower level opposition compared to England and their aims of winning the World Cup, but you can only beat what's in front of you. So today, I want to have a good look at England's 3-0 easing win past Latvia. How England set up with Thomas Tuchel in charge, tactically analysing the performance and England's future 11 for the World Cup next year. Let's go. So against Albania, we saw the first glimpse of Thomas Tuchel's England, and honestly, it wasn't that bad for the first game. It's important to remember they've only been training with the new head coach for a few days, so this was simply about implementing his ideas, his shape, his philosophy, creating a good atmosphere and to learn what he needs to learn about the group of players he's got. There's a few people out there that seem to believe it's no different to Gareth Southgate and the football that we were playing under him. Firstly, it's been 2 games. Secondly, in those 2 games, both teams stuck 10 men behind the ball. And thirdly, under Gareth Southgate in these type of matches, England were often exposed in transition and hugely unconvincing in their ways, even against teams like Latvia and Albania. Within the 2 games, the opposition didn't have a sniff besides a miscommunication between Gerhi and Pickford. There was much greater control of the game, and because the 2 sides stuck 10 men behind the ball, in a low block, it meant when watching there was a clear focus on England breaking the opponents down, not so much the control and stability we had and should have. So to me, I do believe there was much more fluidity and flexibility in England's overall play, much better control and better level coaching of the players it seems. But let's summarise the system we saw Tuchel deploy against Albania first, so then we can then identify the differences and slight evolution that we saw against Latvia. Against Albania, we saw myles, lewis-skelly and Walker as the fullbacks. In midfield, Rice, Jones and Bellingham with Rashford and Foden on the wings. Overall in shape, they progressed through the phases of the pitch with a back 4 in build-up. Walker and MLS were narrow with Rice as the lone 6 in the middle, with Bellingham or Curtis Jones often dropping in and out of that space next to Rice, as it was very fluid looking sides. There were rotations and lots of movement similar to Arne Slot's Liverpool, and at times Brighton and Fulham in their shape. A mix between a 4-1-5 and a 4-2-4. The wingers in Rashford and Foden hold width, but when combination play hits their sides, they are allowed to drift and rotate. The idea is for them to be direct and take some authority in their play when 1v1 versus the fullback, which we saw a lot more against Latvia. Commonly, there was an emphasis on crosses and overloads out wide, particularly triangles. After one game, it was nice to see England move a lot, for there to be a lot of proactive runners and control in the game, which we've seen a lack of in the past. But that's that, let's move on to the main course. Latvia. On Monday evening, England hit 3 in a very dominant display. The first half saw England have 17 shots, with one of them being one of the best free kicks in years from Reece James. Changes to the lineup saw Gerhi in for Byrne, James for Walker, Rodgers for Jones and Bowen for Foden. This meant you had Rodgers and Bellingham as those 2 high rates if you like, which is unreal, and a slight change in utilisation of the fullbacks. Contrary to last Friday night's setup, England were in a 3-2-5 on the ball, versus Latvia's deep 5-4-1. Myles Lewis-Skelly directly inverted into midfield to join his Arsenal midfield partner Declan Rice. Reece James joined Conte and Gerhi in the back 3, but this did change in the second half, and with how deep Latvia were, he and Gerhi still got the chance to go forward a bit. Now, why did Tuchel do this? Why did he change this? Alter this? Well, a 3-2-5 allows you to have balance. 5 players forward, 5 players back, with MLS coming into midfield making a 2 and pushing 5 attackers forward. It means that you pin the opposition right in, sustaining any counter-attacks straight away and maintain that attacking pressure. The pivots of MLS and Declan Rice also meant there was always a free man, so England could find the likes of Rodgers, Kane and Bellingham with ease, and also push Gurhi out wide to bring the ball forward. James and Gurhi as those wide centre-backs, pretty good. They're both great ball carriers of the ball with great comfort. They're both equipped with both feet, and one, Reece James, can hit in a great cross. It's a very stable structure. Latvia in their 5-4-1, as we've mentioned, aim to be deep and just soak up England pressure, which they did pretty well in the first half. The wide players in that midfield line aimed to double up on England's wingers, but this didn't always work, because on the left, Bellingham would push just a tad bit wider, which attracted that wide right player, giving Rashford the chance to be direct 1v1 versus his fullback. On the other flank, James would push up at times to help Bowen and combine with Rodgers too, overloading the flanks. With Latvia's aim to do this too, it meant that the player was always unsure on who to press or who to go to, often giving England a free man and the chance to combine with a little bit more space. But when you come up against a low block, quick, intricate passing play isn't always going to work. You need different ways to break a team down, and to me, Tuchel's England side provided that. Corners, free kicks, crosses, shots from range, and direct play from the wingers gave England that little bit of flexibility to their attacking play, and a bit more ideas, which was good because many teams against low blocks just knock the ball round endlessly without much of an idea. The 17 shots in the first 45 show quite clearly that England look for other ways to score and add more to them than just short passes. Despite the lack of final third quality from Rashford and Bowen, it was nice to see an emphasis on the wingers being direct and finding crosses in. Throughout the first 45, England, as we know, were dominant. There were some good chances from corners and good performances from Rodgers, lewis-skelly and Reece James. Rotations were looking nice and fluid, especially with MLS, Gurhi, Rashford and Bellingham. Bowen had some good moments driving at the fullback. The pressing was well coordinated and forced them backwards on the ball. What the half lacked slightly was more quality out wide, like Bukayo Saka, but also someone more creative from deep. MLS is good at finding simple passes into the forward line beyond the midfield and when carrying that ball forwards. Reece James crosses the ball superbly, but Rice this deep in my opinion doesn't offer too much. I'll get into how I think Tuchel should utilise him later, but to me, one of the most frequent patterns we saw amongst the side was wide overloads, triangles, down the right and the left. With the rotations, this can involve different players, but they all worked well, a lot of the time pinning back Latvian defenders, allowing for a dribbler like Morgan Rodgers to run forwards into the box, which of course he is unreal at. An example of this was the second goal. An example of what I think Rice could be is also there. There's a triangle with three players. Rice's energy and physicality then arrives with a lot of space and then has the quality to deliver the ball into Kane. This is what Rice can do in those spaces. With Rice and Jude in those attacking 8 roles, they both bring a lot of energy, physicality, legs, aerial threat, goal threat, ball retention, ball carrying, creativity. You get the point. The triangles were very frequent on the right in the second half. Why? Because Reece James pushed on. England were very dominant and shut out any counter-attacks, so this could be done. You can see here, Rice, MLS and James on the outside of the box as a free, creating that 2-3 and build-up all over the pitch. With James moving into that free, it means more balance, sure, but also allows Reece James to get into the spaces he thrives in creatively, which England could do with to break down low blocks, as we saw for the second goal with his pass. This worked pretty well. In the second half, Tuchel also altered the wingers. Bowen and Rashford swapped flanks, potentially looking for them to run at their defender more, down the byline onto their strong foot, and creating even more space for the England triangles on their flank. I think Bowen could have performed a lot better, the same as Rashford. They both shared direct intent with the ball every time they had it, but just lacked that quality and couldn't get it right many times. Saka, when back from injury, will definitely help with this. By the end of the game, Tuchel's side were having a bit of fun, more numbers committed to the box, and the play was a little bit more direct, and it seems as if they were enjoying themselves. Eze was great off the bench. His trickiness when taking the fullback on 1v1 and then his crossing was superb. It was certainly a good audition in front of the new boss. So that concludes the display versus Latvia, and we really can't gather too much from just 2 games in charge, especially against 10 men behind the ball. But positive signs are there and a whole lot more to come. And it's that whole lot more to come that I want to talk about. The ideal England 11 for the World Cup to me is this: Pickford, James, Stones, Gerhi, lewis-skelly, Wharton, Rice, Bellingham, Rashford, Saka, Kane. Against stronger and tougher defensive sides like the Serbias, the Denmarks, I'd play the likes of Trent, maybe Rodgers, Jones, Dan Burn for set pieces, but for solidity and against very top teams, this is what I'd look at. A solid centre-back partnership, flexible and quality full-backs with a defensive midfielder in Adam Morton, who's better at finding those inside passes to the forwards and passes into runners than Declan Rice. And this is where Rice and Jude can attack the box and also run for days. To me, this is a very balanced team and one that can differ in shape and approach. It's got the legs and physicality to compete with the top teams, with the attacking quality to break any side down, with, of course, different options off the bench. However, let me know in the comments below what your lineup for the World Cup would look like, because a lot of people will disagree and agree on what players need to be starting. So on that note, thank you for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe and check out any other videos you may enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.